We've got big news to cover today. Last year we got a roadmap in the middle of the year with TankFest, and all they really told us was the usual annual events were happening, and that there'd be one more Cold War line released before the end of the year. It was nice to get that regardless, but it was quite a lackluster roadmap. However, as 2025 begins, they've released a 2025 roadmap that has much more substantial and interesting notes on it this time around. It's a really cool and exciting roadmap to dive into, so let's begin. First things first, we're getting a new Cold War line this coming Tuesday. It's the continuation of the Czech-Romanian line that ended at Era 2, with tanks leading off the existing line, but also branching off the line as well. There are 6 new tanks in total. Starting with the branched path, you have the T-72M variant branching off the bottom Era 2 TR-580. This T-72M then leads into the T-55AM at top Era 2, and then leads into another T-72 variant, the M2. This line goes from a medium to a heavy, back to a medium, then back to a heavy, and the T-72 M2 finally leads into a tank I suspected was coming, and which has finally made its way into the game after all this time, that Pengod had teased it back when he was still around, the PT-91 Twardy. This is one of the Polish tanks releasing with this line of Slovakian and Romanian tanks too. So for those that asked for this tank all those years ago, I hope you're still playing, because you finally got it. Before we mention what the Twardy leads into, let's go back a bit to the TR-125, which was previously the final tank of this line and ended at top Era 2. But now it has a tank that it leads into, which is the medium TR-85M1, with quite an interesting looking turret. And again, that means this line goes from a medium to a heavy to a medium, and now back to a heavy with the true final tank in this line, the top Era 3 T-72M2E Moderna. Both the Twardy and the TR-85M1 lead into this tank, so you have 2 pathing options to get here. And this tank is very interesting. It has 3900 HP, a top speed of 65 kilometers an hour, with a fantastic 22.83 powder weight ratio, and a 125mm gun that deals 550 damage with its standard APFSDS rounds of 606 pen. But then its premium APFSDS rounds do more damage at 565 damage with 738 pen, and both of them have around 1700 shell speed. That is quite odd to see, but that's not what makes this tank interesting. It's the fact that it has these cool dual auto cannons on the back of its turret. It looks quite interesting, but they only have 87mm of pen for 10 damage apiece with 600 in clip. That's 6000 damage with little pen. Its intro is 0.03 seconds, so it dumps that 600 clip in 18 seconds. That's pretty long, but it's a secondary weapon, so it's just added burst in between your shots. So that's coming this Tuesday in the Frostbite season. But this video is about a roadmap, so we know a lot more that's coming later. Before this season is over, we're getting another addition to the game in the form of the event board. This will be a new way to earn rewards alongside the season and earn challenges. Here you can complete new challenges for stamps to then use on the board and collect the rewards. Collecting all the stamps in a row or column will reward you with that row or column's reward. And if you fully clear the board, you get the grand prize, which in this image shows a whole ass tier 9 premium Cobra, which is wild. It says 2 on this image to complete challenges to earn stamps for rewards from January 22nd to February 3rd, so only 2 weeks to do so. But I imagine we will learn more how this works the closer we get to its release. Whether or not that grand prize also changes every 2 weeks will be interesting to see, but that's the game board. The week of February 4th is the start of the new season, and this time around we already know what it's going to be called. Usually we get this info the Friday before the season launch, but we're getting teasers early, and I really like that. It's called the Vipers season, and already we have the splash art for it. Here you can see 2 tanks and a bunch of snakes. The top left tank looks to be the Cold War tank for the season pass and gives me Polish vibes. I presume that's the skin on the tank too, since the other tank on this image looks to have a skin on it as well. I'm gonna guess that the Cold War tank here has something to do with the line being released next week, but we'll have to wait and see. And if any tank nuts are watching, let me know what tank it is or what you think it is. As for the big tank in the middle with double tracks on both sides, we actually know what this is. You see, since the split of the Russian server over on PC, they've been doing some wild things, like introducing tier 11s to the game. Now I'm not saying that's what we're doing, but this tank is one of those tier 11s over there. So we can at least look at that and get a feel for what we're working with. It's called the BZT-70, and it's a Chinese heavy tank. And you can tell that this model looks unfinished, but you can still also tell that it's the same tank, double tracks, and a squished look. Now the interesting about this tank, other than it being a tier 11, is its gun, and you can see the barrel looks the same on the model and on the splash art screen for the season. So there is a high likelihood they have the same gun, which is scary, because this is a heavy tank with a 180mm gun and deals 1050 alpha damage. Yeah, of course this could be different, and when comparing the Chaug on the Russian PC server to ours, they are quite different. So take this with a grain of salt. We very well may change the caliber and damage of this gun when we release it as the tier 10 Chinese heavy tank that will be coming in the new season. I'll be very honest though, I hope it's not another 750 alpha tank, as we just got one of those and it would be kind of annoying to get two of them back to back. We'll just have to wait and see what happens on February 4th with the new Vipers season. But that's not all on February 4th, as it also says we're getting the new rocket boosters mechanic, which is odd that it doesn't say a new Chinese heavy line instead, but it mentions the mechanic of it, which means one of three things. February 4th, the BZ176 may release before the line itself, and that's when the rocket booster mechanic debuts. But that to me sounds unlikely, since they don't usually release tanks that aren't in the season pass at the same time they release a season pass. So another option is that the BZT-70 that we discussed somehow has rocket boosters on it. So when the new season releases, technically so does rocket boosters, since the BZT may have it. Or the third option, the line is actually released at the same time as the season and we get the brand new Chinese rocket booster heavies in the game. Regardless of what happens on the 4th, it's guaranteed that we're getting the line anyway, so be ready with your Type 58 fully researched to start the grind day 1. And let's quickly go over the Chinese heavy line real quick. You have the BZ58 at tier 7, which is where you begin with the rocket booster mechanics. And that obviously goes into the tier 8, the BZ166, which has a weirdly shaped upper plate and leads into the BZ68 at tier 9. And finally, the big boy at the end of the line is the BZ75, which has a big 152mm gun that deals 650 alpha damage. Finally, a tank to rival the 705A's alpha damage. Of course, this tank also has rocket boosters to help it get into position and a really good turret face, with some large cupolas and a uniquely shaped hull. Its stats may be different when we finally get it, but it should be relatively the same vehicle, and I'm really looking forward to another World War II grind this year. Those are all the things we have dates for on the roadmap, but we're also told what's being developed too, which is super cool to see. The regiments thing that Zots had, I believe, accidentally mentioned during Tankfest last year is making its way into the game sometime this year, and is an in-game clan system with levels and challenges to complete for personal and clan-wide benefits to earn, as well as a roster of your clan finally in the actual game. I'm assuming and hoping too I can invite players and accept applications in the game without having to go to the website for that. This is a feature I've been waiting for, and it's surprising that it's taken 11 years to do so, but it's finally here in 2025. The other things being developed are 2 more tech tree lines, one for Cold War and one for World War II. So it sounds like we're getting 4 lines this year in total like we did last year. The Cold War one is the Japanese line, which I had suspected given their change in response to Japanese Cold War tank questions, and the World War II line is American, which we can presume to be the Yo tanks, with hopefully their reserve track mechanic too. It is interesting to see no mention of a Japanese or Polish World War II line since the Type 68 and Grom released last year. That actually gives me some hope that they're actually working on their mechanics and thus will release them when they're done cooking. Now there are some other things said to be under exploration, which tells us that they're in the discussions and idea phases with no actual finished plans to be developed just yet. And that's for an equipment and consumables update alongside a commander's skill update. This could be big and solve a lot of issues we've had with these things for a while now since 6.0, like 9 perk crew limits, with some perks feeling super mandatory and competitive while others will never be used, and things like strong concealment passives on smoke screens and no reusable standard consumables. Hopefully damage reduction is also removed and replaced with an HP increase equipment piece instead, and the mobility equipment is condensed into one with a flat rate instead of percentage based. We can even hope for the camo net to no longer work all the time and go back to being stationary, with Binax being added back into the game, and a new camo equipment piece with less of a benefit that works all the time, to replace our current camo net. There's plenty I'm hoping for with these updates if they do make it into development, but only time will tell what they come up with. There's also another crossover coming soon that they tease in this article, stating that they cannot tell us who it is, but that if you like pizza, you'll have something in common with these fellas. which tells us it's most likely the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles collab that PC had a while back. Which is neat, I suppose, but it's not Transformers, so time to ban Legend Crypt. And that's the roadmap. It's thoroughly got me excited for 2025, especially with 2 new lines releasing right at the beginning of the year, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the year will truly develop. Whether we go in the right direction, what the season pass tank rewards will be, and hopefully we don't find a way to tank yet another year of tanks with something awful. Remember too, the current season and the last season for the Celebrations event that will reward us with the M42 Duster and the M163 VADs. I presume too, another year-long event will begin with the Viper season as well, so be ready for that. Anyway, thanks for watching and take it easy out there.